go. What's up? Everybody feeling? You guys doing good? Good to see you guys here this morning. Thanks so much for being with us today. Man, I do want to say I didn't get to be out here with you during communion and prayer, but man, that's one of my favorite times of us together is an opportunity to pray together each Sunday. Has anybody ever come up for prayer and God really done something in your life? Anybody? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of awesome stuff that happens down front here, and so if you've never experienced that, I encourage you to take the time one Sunday and come find somebody to pray with. It really is an awesome experience. And so thank you to the prayer team. I just wanted to take a second. Every Sunday there's people come up and pray. Can we give them a hand? Just thank them for dedicating themselves. Big thanks to all you guys. Hey, good morning, and thank you for being with us. If you're a guest with us this morning, thank you for being here today, for spending the time with us. We know it's a time investment, and so we thank you for joining us this morning. Also, those who are listening and watching, every week we film the services, and they get posted to the website, epicbaltimore.com, in the middle of the week on Thursday. So those of you that are watching right now, catching up, we want to say hello to you as well. So could we put our hands together and thank those that are guests with us and also those that are watching, wherever you guys are at. So good morning to all of you as well. Hey, we're wrapping up our series today called Swipe Right. We've been learning about relationships the right way. Our hope in this series is that we would learn to say yes to what's right, but also leave what's left, because those are very, very different things. You don't have to say yes to everything. We learned that last week, that regardless of where we are on the relationship spectrum, if we're married, we're single, newly single, we're going to have this decision, this choice that's in front of us till the day we die. And so we have to learn what to say yes to. We don't have to say yes to everything, but we can decipher, we can get some discernment about saying yes to the right thing. And so that's our hope during this series, is that we would learn this, what we should be saying yes to, and how to handle this idea of choice and this decision-making process. Week one, we looked at our primary character, Samson, and we're going to get back to in just a moment as we wrap up. But we learned about our motivations for saying yes. A lot of times our motivations are based out of ourself and how we feel about ourselves, our confidence in the flesh or a lack of confidence in the flesh, which we called insecurity. But it's still self nonetheless. It's all on the same spectrum. Arrogance on one side, insecurity on the other. And so we said, hey, instead of looking to ourselves to find out what's the best thing to do, we should be looking to Christ and finding our strength in Him. And so week one, we learned that, hey, it's not the direction. It's not the choice so much, but it's really decisions that make our direction, and our direction determines our destination. And so finding strength in God's ways as we move forward. Second week, we learned about transparency, and there were a lot of secrets that we talked about. We talked about kind of coming clean with stuff that's happening in our life, getting honest, forgiving each other, getting accountable. It's really important for us to know that what we do behind closed doors matters. What those that are most important to us, what they don't know can actually harm them. And so we talked about being transparent last week, about being selfless. We looked at this quote that says, we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their behavior. Anybody find that to be true? I love, regardless of what I do, if I don't answer your email, I'm hoping that you understand, oh, Chris is busy, that's why he didn't get back to me. But when you don't respond to my email, I say, man, this person's a horrible human being, You might know the feeling. I want you to judge me by my intentions, but I'm going to judge you by your actions. And so we said, hey, the antidote to selfishness, which that is selfish, the antidote to that is serving. And so finding someone to serve or some way to serve, if we are married and we're in the room, finding some way to serve our spouse that shows them that we love them. Not a self-serving love where we serve them how it makes us feel better, but we got to learn their love language. If you never heard about the 5 love languages, go Google that. It's crucial to your relationship or your love interest, your marriage that you're already in. And so last week we learned about choosing selflessness. Well, today we're going to wrap up with something that's extremely simple, and it's kind of a given, but there are a lot of misunderstandings about this idea. Today I want to end by just saying yes to love. Now, this sounds really basic. This sounds really simple. But unfortunately, choosing love, saying yes to love, has been so complicated as of late. What is love? Is love a feeling? Is it a choice? How about falling out of love? You ever heard that? I just fell out of love with my partner, with my spouse, with my husband, with my wife. What is falling in love? What is falling it out of really look like? How do I know when I have it? What is this love that we're really all about? It seems harder than ever to say yes to love, to choose it, because our society, our culture has made it so complicated, and I think has really clouded this concept of love. Well, our principal character through the series has been this guy named Samson, and he's in Old Testament, ancient Israel. Samson's committed some of the classic blunders of what not to do in relationships and also in love, and saying yes to love is really no different with him. So today I want to leave us wrapping up the story of Samson, calling out through his actions what love is and what love is not. And Samson, better than any other in the Bible, shows us what love is not. And so I think he's a great character for us to end our series on and really just kind of stick in it and find out what his perception of love was and then do the opposite. So if you got a Bible, grab it and turn with me to Judges chapter 16. Judges chapter 16 is in the Old Testament. You know, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, kind of move on forward after you get past Joshua is in there. Judges chapter 16. Just the first 4 verses where we're going to be. If you didn't bring a Bible, there's some around you, and it's on the screens for you also. A little context. Samson found a Philistine girl. Philistines were foreigners. They didn't worship like Israel worshiped. They were actually the enemy in a political sense as well. They were imposing rule over Israel. They worshiped foreign gods. Well, Samson marries this girl, and at their wedding, after their wedding, Samson leaves. At the wedding, he makes a kind of an embarrassment of himself and her, and we talked about that a few weeks ago. Well, after it, he returns to his parents' house, and when Samson returns, his wife has been given away. Now she's married to one of Samson's fake friends, and so he kirks out and destroys a ton of Philistine property. Well, what we didn't get to at the end of chapter 15 is that a ton of Philistines are chasing him down because of this destroyed property, and he kills 1,000 of them at the end of the 15th chapter. So Samson's on the run. He's a fugitive, and his marriage has fallen apart really before it ever began, and so his relationships are all a mess. He's everywhere, and he's on the run for his life, and this is where we pick up the story in the 16th chapter of the book of Judges. Here we go, right at verse 1. One day, Samson went to Gaza. Now, Gaza is in Philistine territory. Now, I don't know if you notice, there's a reoccurring theme. Samson doesn't like to stay home. He likes to go out and mess with the enemy. He likes to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He gets a thrill off of this. So now he's down in Gaza, which is in Philistine territory. There, he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend a night with her. Verse 2, the people of Gaza were told, hey, Samson's here. So they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They made no move during the night, saying, at dawn, we're going to kill him. Verse 3, but Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the 2 posts, and tore them loose, bar and all. He lifted them to his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Now, you got to get this image in your mind. Samson, he's got these people that are trying to kill him. They're surrounding the house. He walks out, grabs the city gates, and just tears them to shreds and lifts them over his head, walks up to the top of the mountain. I mean, how much more ape-like is this guy going to get? It's just a knucklehead, right? You know, rah! And everybody, they run, and he drops them and kind of walks off. This guy he's a piece of work, right? So verse 4, this is where we started the series at. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman. I love that line in NIV. He fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. Now, what I want to do in looking at Samson's actions, not just in these 3 verses, but really in the last 3 chapters that we've looked at, I want to give you 8 truths to remember when saying yes to love. 8 truths to remember when saying yes to love. And it's going to be, some things are going to be about what love is, and some are going to be about what love is not. And I think Samson gives us a great example of all of this. And so in no particular order, here we go. 8 truths to remember when saying yes to love. Number 1, love is work, and love is not convenient. Love is work, and it is not convenient. We're going to get into the falling in love myth in just a minute, but falling sounds so effortless, right? Isn't that kind of what you get? I know married guys probably have been forced to watch romantic comedies. I don't know, any other married guys in here have been forced to watch it? Yeah. You know the pain. It just seems so effortless. Oh, I fell in love. He's just so magical. Oh, just kind of, he was there, but that's not real life. Can I get an amen from anybody? Love is hard work. There ain't nothing effortless about it. Love is tough. One day Samson went to Gaza and he saw a prostitute and went in to spend the night with her. This is not love. Love is not found 2 a.m. at the bar. Love is not found at the prostitute's house. Love is not easy. Love is not convenient. Love is work. Love is very, very hard work. It takes some effort and intention to make love happen and exist. This is lust, what we see Samson doing. Lust is found 2 a.m. at the bar. Lust is found at the prostitute's house. Lust is easy. Lust is convenient. Lust is cheap, and lust is lazy. Love, on the other hand, takes effort. It's not just a stop off. It's not just a just passing through. It's not just a brief stop on a relational journey. Love takes work to exist. Love takes work to happen. It is not convenient. Second thing, number 2, love is faithful. Love is faithful and does not give up easily. The reason Samson's at the prostitute's house is because his marriage is falling apart. He walked away from his marriage twice in the same chapter that we read. Probably in the span of a few months, he walked away from his relationship, his marriage, twice. This is the reason he's at the prostitute's house. Although not ideal, Samson could have made it work with his wife, but instead he chose to walk away. He chose to give up way too easily, and he chose not to fight. He did not choose to be faithful. Instead, he went for the easy route. Love is faithfulness, even through the hard times. When the opportunity presents itself to cheat and to give up, saying yes to love is saying yes to faithfulness, not walking away when it gets tough. Number 3, third one, love is a choice that you feel. It is not a feeling that you choose. Love is a choice that you feel. It is not a feeling that you choose. This is a big misnomer about this idea of love, is that I will feel it when it's there. Yeah, you might feel it. But when it's there, it also may not be a feeling that you kind of can recognize. Love is a choice. It's a conscious decision that comes with feelings. But just because the feelings aren't there does not mean that love does not exist. Samson is a classic blunder where he says he falls in love with Delilah. Now, my impression of this is that it is not true. It's more of what Samson thought he saw or thought was actually there. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and maybe he actually did. But this wording of falling in love, it implies an unstoppable force like gravity just draws us in. Like the love, falling in love with someone is so strong, it draws us in like tractor beams, right? You know, it just kind of sucks you right into. It was a Dumb and Dumber reference. If you didn't get it, that's okay. Watch it later. Falling in love is like this unstoppable force. I just can't get away from it. Well, the Hebrew word for love is this word, ahava. And the root of it, hava, which literally means to offer or to give. Another root of the word means to nurture or to devote completely to another. The essence of the Hebrew word love is not an emotion at all. It is all action. These are verbs. In the Hebrew language, the word love meant to give, to offer, to nurture, to devote oneself. Love in its purest form is not something that happens to us. Rather, it's a condition that we create when we give of ourselves. I want you to think of this for a moment, that you have two people across from each other, and in between them, let's say there's nothing there. There's nothing present at all. But one party begins to give of themselves and creates this space in between the two of them. Well, the other person, they're having this stuff given to them, and it's, service and devotion and nurturing. It's kind of coming at them, and what happens is they begin to reciprocate and give of themselves to the other. So now in between where there was empty space and nothing at all, now there's this reciprocal process where it begins to build up momentum, and you start to feel almost like friction. You can feel the warmth of the giving and receiving happening between the two people. That's what the Jewish idea of love really was. Is giving, is nurturing, and it creates this space in the middle, almost like a flywheel begins to pick up speed and pick up momentum. You can feel the warmth and the friction off of it. That's what we want as love. We want that feeling of warmth, and you see sparks flying and flames and woo-wee, like there's fire and flames in your loins, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, woo, I love this person, in more ways than one, like you can feel it, Well, it only happens because there was an environment created for that warmth and the flames and the sparks and what we think is love to be there. It was created by momentum, giving of myself and receiving as it came back to me. It created this flywheel that just picks up speed. It picks up momentum. We think when we meet someone that is going to be there and that's the right person, but that's not true. It's an environment that's created. You just don't stumble into that. You create it. It's a choice. It's an action. It implies an environment that we are moving. You don't feel like you're in love, married couples in the room? Do something to create it. Do something to foster the environment, to create the atmosphere where the love can grow. Just like soil of the ground needs to be tilled and nurtured and watered, so do the hearts of people, so do the hearts of us. When we believe in things like falling into love, we place ourselves as helpless beings and slaves to our emotions and feelings, and we can't help where our feelings take us and our emotions move us. That's a terrible way to live. Because tomorrow morning, it's Monday, and you got to go to work, and you're not going to feel like it, right? But guess what? You're going, or you're fired. I mean, that is a choice you have. But you go, don't you? You don't feel like being there? Unless you love your job, unless like it's the most amazing thing in the entire world, and you feel it. But even then, when you love the place that you go, there's going to come a day where you don't feel like being there, but you still choose to go. And it creates an environment where you give and it gives back to you. You love when you get paid on Friday, right? I love this job now. That's what love is. It happens with a person too. I may not feel it, but I'm still going to give of myself. I'm still going to choose to pour into it because I know that it's going to be reciprocal and it's going to come back to me. And I can love another person in a way that they deserve and they need. And I know we'll come back and reciprocate. Love is a choice. Love is a culture that we create. A culture and environment. When love is reciprocated, that's the feeling we look for. And for many of us, we're looking for reciprocal love without ever giving to it in the first place. I don't believe Samson fell in love with Delilah. I believe he looked at her, and he had dirty thoughts about what he could do with her. And it was recorded that he just fell in love. Ooh. You see Samson's track record is full of lust, not much love. We're going to look at in just a minute. Week 1, we continued. We actually started at verse 4 and kept moving through 16. And you see that Samson and Delilah had this relationship where she begged and pleaded and prodded for him to tell his deepest, darkest secrets so that she could change him. She wanted to cut his hair off. She wanted to remove his strength from him. She tried to change him, which leads us to the fourth truth is this. Love is unconditional, without condition. Love is unconditional, which is without conditional. And to make sure we define what unconditional looked like. And so let me explain it this way. Stop trying to change each other. Stop trying to change each other. Let me say it one more time just to make sure it sinks in. Stop trying to change each other. You get into a relationship with someone and you say, oh, I would love them so much more if they only did blank. I don't know if that's love. Love is unconditional. It doesn't matter if you change or if you never change. If you're the same person for the rest of my life, I will still choose to love you. Love is not conditional upon them changing. I would love them more if they weren't so much like their mother. I would love him more if he wasn't so needy, if he was more of a provider, if he was more ambitious. People change because they want to, not because they're begged to. not because they're manipulated to. When our love for a person is conditional upon their changing, it isn't love for them. It's actually love for ourselves. And we want to change and manipulate a person into someone that we feel more comfortable loving ourselves. It's manipulating someone into the person that you love more. It's called self-serving, selfish love when you change someone. True love is unconditional, without condition, prerequisite, or requirement. Now, I'm not talking about standards. So for all the single people in the room, have the highest of standards. Please don't settle for second best. You deserve the best. I'm not talking about standards. I'm talking about loving someone deeply regardless if they ever change or they do not. How about this? Would you love someone if they changed for the worse? Once you stood at an altar and you said, I do, till death do us part, forever and always, and you kissed and everybody cheered and was all warm and fuzzy and the doves flew away, you know, a magical moment. What would happen if the person changed for the worse, like the next day? Did the commitment you made on the stage was that not true? Was it conditional upon them steadily improving from here on out, just kind of up and to the right? I want to see you getting more fit and more disciplined, and I want to see you earning more money, you know. That's what I'm really looking for. That's what I meant when I said, till death do us part. What happened if they changed for the worse? Would you not love them forever? Or was the promise, hey, I'll love you forever as long as you don't get old and saggy? You know, we're good there. Or maybe I'll love you forever as long as you work hard and we can retire at 50. Or I'll love you forever as long as you let me go to the strip club with my buddies in Vegas once a year. I'll love you forever as long as you can bear me children. Conditional love is not love. It's self-indulgence by manipulation. Is this too hard? Am I being too hard? I'm sorry for a minute. I'm kind of on the downer. You guys okay? You know, everybody buckled up? Still with me? Okay. Number 5, let's keep moving. Love is equally yoked. Love is not a tug of war. Love is equally yoked. It is not a tug of war. I'm going to go back and read the 14th chapter, the beginning of Samson's story. Samson went to Timnah, and there he saw a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his mom and dad, hey, I've seen a Philistine woman at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. He was very demanding, right? A little punk. Verse 3. But he was probably bigger than everybody else, so they just put up with it, you know? His father and mother said, hey, isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all your people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? Samson said to his dad, get her for me. She's the right one for me. Samson wanted to marry someone that was outside of his people. And what that really meant is not so much like an incestual idea of marrying your kin, but it was really a faith thing. It was a worship thing. People that worshiped and believed like he did. It was someone of a different faith. Now, this is not an impossibility. It happens all the time. People marry those that are of a different faith, that believe differently. It happens all the time. So I'm not saying it is completely out of the question, but his parents were not all about it. His parents were not all about. I know my mom wasn't on board with a lot of my girlfriends that were outside of the church. She was thankful when I found a godly girl in Lori that, you know, she loved Jesus and she wanted to get closer to God as much as she wanted to get closer to me, or if not more. So my family was, you know, in on that. So I can understand Samson's parents are like, man, are you for real? Like, can't you find someone who believes like we do, who worships like we do? Samson's parents wanted to know why he couldn't find someone in his own people who lived and believed and worshiped the people of the same faith. The Apostle Paul wrote it this way in the New Testament. He said, look, don't be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? Here's the best way I know how to put it. Let's say 2 oxen are out in a field, right? And this is what happened before machinery. You would have, in most parts of the world, even now, you would have 2 oxen or horses or animals. They would be out in the field, and the farmer would need to yoke them together. And so the yoke was the thing that went around their necks. I don't know why I'm doing this. My back is shredded. It just, anyway. So they would yoke them together with this piece of wood. It would go around their neck, and in between the yoke of the oxen, there would be connected the plow, and then the farmer would be at the back of the plow, and he would be guiding it together. Well, if the yoke were unequal, one ox would pull to the left or to the right, while the second ox was trying to go straight and be led by the farmer. If the yoke was unequal, one would constantly pull away from the direction of the farmer. If the yoke was unequal, they could not go in a straight line. It would always be a tug of war. And so Paul is saying, look, when you're with unbelievers, don't yoke yourself to them unequally. If there's a person that you're connected to that doesn't believe like you do and worship like you and get guidance from the farmer like you do, you're not going to go in a straight line. You'll always be pulling against the guidance of the guider who's behind you, or you'll be pulling against each other as you're trying to plow the field of your life, as you're trying to move forward. You can't be an unequally yoked with someone else, with an unbeliever. I mean, you can, but it's going to be miserable. You're not going to move forward. What's going to happen in the field of your life is going to be a mess of turns back and forth, left and right. You're not going to move in a straight line. It's important to be yoked together with people who believe like you do, who get direction like you do, who are following guidance the same way that you do. I don't mean this in any disrespectful way to the cross. Love you, Jesus. I can't pick it back up. Sorry. When we are unequally yoked with unbelievers, we are constantly moving and constantly finding our direction from somewhere else. This is what happens when a relationship is formed and the parties are not on the same page, especially when it comes to faith. Will there be differences of opinions? Absolutely. You think this, I think that. But what is the objective decider in a relationship? In a non-Christian relationship, relationships or the parties will pick a kind of an arbitrary decision maker, a friend, a boss, a book, a website, WWKD. What would the Kardashians do? Maybe that is your decider. I hope not. We should pray after. But Christian couples, on the other hand, they consult scripture and godly counsel, and this is what keeps them moving in a straight line. They are always looking to God, who is the farmer in this scenario, lead us and guide us, keep us moving in a straight line. But it's impossible to move in a straight line if both parties are not equally yoked together, finding their direction from the same place. The guider, the thing that moves us forward, becomes God. Godly wisdom, godly counsel, his word. Love is yoked equally. It is not a tug of war. Makes it difficult to have a balanced reciprocation of giving and receiving when there's an unbalance in a relationship. Number 6, this seems to be obvious, but I think we should state it. Love is not lust. Love is not lust. We kind of hit on this just a second ago, but I want to show you Samson's progression in lust. The beginning of all the 3 chapters, 14, 15, and 16, shows us the progression of Samson's state of mind, his action. Let me show it to you. 14:1. Samson went down to Timnah. There he saw a young Philistine. This is key. I mean, seeing is a part of life. It's okay. But his actions that follow show you that it was a seeing of lust, not of love. He saw a young Philistine. When he returned, he said, "I've seen her. Now get her for me." 15:1. It says, later on, at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat, went to visit his wife, and he said, "I'm going into my wife's room." We talked about that a few weeks ago. I'll try not to repeat what I said then, but he was going in, and he had one thing on his mind, right? Freaky deaky time. That's what he saw, and that's where he was going. Now check out 16:1. The father wouldn't let him in to go see his wife because she was now remarried to someone else. But let's check out 16:1. One day Samson went to Gaza. He saw a prostitute, and he went in and spent the night with her. Look at the progression of lust in Samson's life. Look, touch, take. Lust will always go in a downward spiral. It will always digress to wanting more and more and more. Second week, we talked about being transparent, and we kind of even hit on this concept of pornography in a marriage and in a relationship. Lust will always digress to wanting more and more and more. It's a downward spiral. Samson saw, he wanted, and eventually he took it. This is what lust does. This is not love. If lust is left unchecked, it will always get worse and grow into an unmanageable state. Samson wasn't in love with any of these women. Maybe Delilah, if we give him the benefit of the doubt, but his track record shows he was driven by lust. Lust is easy, it's convenient, it's cheap, and it's lazy. Love's progression is deep and it's rich. Instead of look, touch, and take, it expresses itself through listening and feeling and giving. It listens before it speaks. It feels more than just the physical. It gives of itself. Does love not get anything? No, it receives. It's a reciprocal process where it receives as it gives. Move right along, number 7. Love is becoming the right person. Love is not looking for the right person. This is a myth that I was hoping we got some time to talk about. Another classic blunder Samson commits. In Judges 14:3, he sees this woman and he says, man, she's the right one for me. She's the right one. There's a prevailing thought and undercurrent when it comes to finding someone in our culture, someone to spend the rest of our lives with. If you're dating, you may have thought this. If you're married, you may have made the decision to marry the person that you are with based on this. And it's called the right person myth. And it goes this way. When I meet the right person for me, everything will be all right. When I find the right one, everything is going to be okay. Is he the right one for me? Is she the right one for me? Maybe if you've been married for a long period of time, maybe you've asked yourself, I don't know if he's still the right one for me. I don't know if she's still the right one for me. Samson bought into this right person myth just the same as we do nowadays. It's nothing new to us. This happened centuries ago. Samson fell into this myth, into this lie that someone was going to complete him. They looked and said, ooh, I can see it. She can complete me. She's going to make my life better. She's the right one. Instead of asking ourselves or looking for the right one, these are the questions we probably should be asking. If you're single, maybe you should be saying, am I the person I'm looking for is looking for? Instead of looking for the right one, maybe you should be saying, hey, am I the person I'm looking for is looking for? Becoming the right person. Or if you're married, how about this one? Am I the person I want to be married to wants to be married to? Does that make sense? It sounds really weird when I say it, but I think you know what I mean. Am I the person I want to be married to wants to be married to? It's about becoming the right person, not just looking for the right one. Not just out on the hunt on the horizon. Hey, there's going to be a right one, and the sun's going to set right behind them as they cross over, and it's going to look like, birds are flying out from behind them, and I'm going to hear heavenly music, and I'm just going to know that that's the right one. I can just tell. I'll be in the know. He'll whisper to me. God will say, he's the right one. Yup, it's her. And who would have known? She's hot, God's got the same taste I do. Who would have known? Isn't it weird? God likes the same ladies I do. Yeah. Instead of falling for that lie, instead of falling for that trick, maybe we should be saying, am I the right one? God, do in me what you want to do in me. Make me the right person. If you have a conflict in your marriage and you feel separated and pulling apart, are you looking to God and saying, you know what? Make me the right one. Make me the one that she wants to fall in love with again. Do in me the work that needs to be done to where he wants to fall back in love with me and not look elsewhere. Do it in me. Instead of manipulating and begging and prodding and trying to change them into the person that I love more, no, God, you do the work in me first. Am I the right one? Lastly, number 8, love hurts. There's pain involved. Love is not indifference. Love is not indifference. Eli Wiesel famously said this: the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of beauty is not ugliness, it's indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, but indifference between life and death. Last week we talked about Samson's selfishness and how it destroyed the relationships around him. There's nothing more selfish than indifference, just not caring at all. Just saying whatever, just giving up completely in a relationship. Recently, I watched the marriage of a friend of mine dissolve very publicly. Divorced in less than a year. Behind the scenes, there was things that came out just one after another, and it was really ugly. Close to them, so I was involved in the process. But the only thing that changed throughout the dissolving of this relationship was one of the parties just stopped caring, just gave up. I just don't want to try anymore. That simple, small decision, it was like a crack in the foundation that just spread a little at a time. Communication changed. This person's outlook on others changed. Their outlook on their spouse changed. And before you know it, the entire home just crumbled to pieces. All they did is just stop caring. All they did was just give up. And seemingly overnight, they looked at the other person and says, I just don't think that I love you anymore. I just don't feel like we're the same people. I just don't think we love each other anymore. What does that mean? It means indifference crept in. They stopped giving and stopped trying and stopped caring, stopped acting to make love an atmosphere, an environment, a culture that they equally created together. They stopped trying. Even if it was justified. Even if it was justified. All they needed to do was just stop trying. And it was a death sentence on the relationship. Here's the truth. Love hurts. There's pain involved in love. And that's okay. I mean, we do things that don't feel great the entire time we do them. There's a thin line between love and hate and joy and pain, right? And pleasure and pain. There's a very thin line between the two. But it's inevitable. The greatest joys of our life are very close to the greatest pains of them. If you choose to love, you're choosing the greatest joys of your life. If you choose to love, you're also choosing the greatest pains of your life. C.S. Lewis wrote it this way as the band gets ready to come and wrap up this morning. He said, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it up carefully, round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. And so ask yourself this: has my heart been closed behind the walls of protection, or has it been free? Has it been open? Has it been vulnerable to hurt and to joy? One of the reasons Christianity as a religion makes so much sense to me is because the Father that Jesus described was one that was committed to the deepest, purest form of love, and it involved pain. The Father that Jesus talked about endured pain and suffering just like you and I do. It said when his son was on the cross that he had to turn his back, and the son felt it for the first time. Why have you forsaken me? The God that we talk about, that we view in Scripture, was one who was in the deepest of love, the deepest of joys, and the deepest of pains. The Father's heart, when it hurt, it was hurt from humanity. He didn't turn its back on us, but instead of closing himself off, his heart open and remain vulnerable to us. The vulnerability of a child in a manger. There's nothing more vulnerable than that. The vulnerability of a young Hebrew boy growing up in a Roman-occupied environment where his life meant little to none in the grand scheme of things. The vulnerability of a 30-year-old Hebrew man stepping up and laying down his life out of love. God didn't hedge his bets. He didn't lock his heart up safe from disappointment. Instead, he gave it up for you and for me. He gave himself the greatest pain that one could dream of so that he could experience the greatest joy of love, so that we could experience life and love like we've never dreamed. And today I want to choose love. I want you to choose love. I want you to choose it with another person because it's going to be the greatest joys of your life. But I'd be a fool if I didn't tell you it's also the greatest pain. There's hurt involved in it. And that's okay. How do we experience that love? Just like we experience it from any other place. Before we endeavor to choose love with another, I implore you, experience the greatest love mankind has ever known. And it's God's love for you. It changes the way that I love my wife. It changes the way that I love my daughter. If my love for them was based on what they give to me, there'll be a time when they can't give it to me. And if that's the case, then my love dies with that. We've been very public about what Lori has gone through the past few years in her health, going through chemo and radiation and a cancer treatment. During that, she was incapable of giving me love. I mean, she was on, almost on her deathbed. If you've ever seen someone go through chemo, it's the worst. It is the worst. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. There was a time where she was incapable of giving me any love, of saying anything positive to me, of serving me in any way. Even if it was acts of service or even gifts, she was just incapable of buying me anything just to make me feel better. If my love for her was based off of her giving something to me, it would have died the same day we got the cancer diagnosis. But because I look at God's love for me, it changes the way that I love her. Because I'm incapable of giving God anything. I mean, I can try my hardest. But I think it's like a stick figure sketch that London gives me. And I go, wow, this is awesome. Is your name Picasso? She's like, I don't know who that is. The reason I love it is because she gave it to me. It's not because there's really any worth to it. It's the value that I ascribe to it. What I give to God, he looks and says, oh man, this is really pathetic, but I love it because you gave it to me, I love it because you gave it to me. And he loves me so deeply. And even though I'm incapable of giving him anything, he's given me everything. So when I view my spouse, when I view Lori, regardless if she can give me everything or nothing, I still have to have my heart wide open and give her all of myself. Man, that's hard. I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do. But when we look at God's love for us, it changes the way we love each other. So if you're in this room and you're in the pursuit of love with another person, maybe you're single and you're looking for a spouse, you're looking for someone to do this with, maybe you're married this morning and you're saying, how can we continue to choose love moving forward? Your first decision is got to look to the heavens, look to the cross of Christ and say, God, show me how to love others the way that you love me. Don't bypass that. Don't come this morning and say, I just need some tips and tricks and PC. Just tell me what to do. Tell me when I need to go on date night. How often should I buy flowers? Is it every 5 weeks? Is it every 5 days? I don't know. She changes all the time, Women are impossible to nail down. I can't tell you that. What I can tell you to do is look at the cross of Christ. When you see his love for you, it'll change the way you love others. But you have to let it in. Love is life. And a life without love isn't life at all. If you would join me in prayer as we wrap up this morning. Your heads bowed, eyes closed, if you choose to do so. This morning, I'm going to simply invite you to pray with us today, to accept the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross as an act of love for you. And you may have been a good person. You may have done a lot of good things in your life, and that's great, and I want you to do good things and great things. But you still might be able to admit this morning that you haven't done anything for God. That's okay. He still has given you it all. This morning, if you've never accepted Christ as your own, if you've never made room in your heart for Him to reside, before we pray today, I'm going to ask you just to lift your hand in a moment. The act of lifting a hand is just saying, God, I count me in. I want to give you space in my heart today. I want to begin a relationship with you. I want to experience your love for me. So this morning, if that's you, if you want to begin a relationship with Christ today for the first time, on the count of 3, would you lift your hand? 1, know that He loves you. He's done everything He can. He's given you it all. 2, He has a purpose for you. And 3, lift your hand high and say this to me. I want a relationship with Jesus. I want to experience His love for me. Thank you for that hand. Awesome. Awesome. 1, 2. Man. Awesome. Here's what we're going to do. Across the room, you can put your hands down. Whether you lifted your hand or not, I want to ask you to pray this prayer with me this morning. And when you say it, I want you to say it loud. I want you to put some umph into it. I want you to open your heart as you open your mouths. And believe these words. Whether it's your first time praying or your 1,000th time for praying it. I want you to mean these words. Allow our hearts to be open and allow God to move on us this morning. Say this with me. Say, Father, thank you for strength and wisdom. And thank you for your grace and your mercy and your unconditional love. I confess that I can't do this on my own. I need you. Would you forgive me of my sin? Come into my heart and make me new today. I receive your love for me in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you rise to your feet this morning? Would you put your hands together and celebrate with those who made a commitment for Jesus?
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I'm reminded, God's greatest commandment to us is to love each other. And this series has just been such a great reminder on how to do that. So thank you, Chris, for this awesome series. I have 3 reminders for you. The first is, if today was your first time, come visit me at the Next Steps table. I'd love to get to know you and to give you a gift. Also, if you raised your hand for the first time and accepted Jesus into your life, come see me at the Next Steps table. We'd love to celebrate with you and talk to you about what next steps look like. Also, for our regular attenders, we have the Joy boxes here on the right. We also have ways to give online, text to give. And then lastly, our recovery group, your location has changed. We have a group that meets after service. So today you'll be in the Canton 2 room just down the hall. Come see me if you need directions. Thanks so much, guys. We love you. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
God,